Welcome to the SFB blog. I should probably title this one, Older Gen X Lady Probably Will Cry When She Listens to It's All I Can Do, her favorite song by the Cars. I don't know, there's just something about the Cars that are speaking to me lately really deeply as I've rediscovered their catalog and kind of newly discovering who they were. And I'm trying to find some understanding about why that is, but I can't. So I've decided I'm just going to let the universe move me in whatever way it's going to and not question it. So today I want to talk about why, in my opinion, It's All I Can Do is the very best Cars song. I can listen to this song on repeat 10 or 20 times in a row and not get tired of hearing it. And believe me, I have done that. Their catalog is so chock full of amazingly incredible songs. But this, to me, is just an absolute standout in a couple different ways. I think it's very interesting that they never performed it live, or at least there's no audio or visual evidence that they did. And I guess Elliot Easton has said in a few interviews that I've read and watched that it was not a favorite of the band's. And I just find that really interesting because it's such a great song. But, you know, he's so darn respectful of the band members that he rarely says anything that might reveal any discord they may have had. And he just kind of gives little references here and there that are kind of vague about the dynamics of the band. But he's obviously not into dissing anyone or revealing anything, because I just get the impression that he's a really decent person. But I just think it's interesting that it was a song that they didn't care to perform live. Why is this song their best nugget of musical perfection? For one thing, it appears on the Candy O album, and I'm a big fan of their pre-Heartbeat City material. I really prefer the sound of the Roy Thomas Baker produced Cars. The first three albums to me are the Cars. That's the sound of the Cars. Shake It Up is a good album. It has some great songs. Heartbeat City, also a great album. I know some people think Heartbeat City is their best album, but I think there's really more of a direct line to a commercial sort of success from Shake It Up to Heartbeat City. And I just like that earlier sound. The lyrics to this song, as all Cars songs, are very interesting, but this particular song, just to me, has those universal themes of longing and hoping and wishing and desire. I think most of Rick Ocasek's songs, not all of them, but most of them are essentially love songs. You know, they might be wry, sarcastic, biting, interesting. You know, his lyrics are just so kind of out there. But I think they're love songs nonetheless. And this one just gets me right here for some reason. When I was crazy, I thought you were great. I kept my renditions of you on the wall where holiday romance is nothing at all. Is there anyone who can't relate to these lyrics? I can't even begin to count the number of times in my youth I was crazy out of my mind with lust for someone who was probably not the right person for me and who didn't have a holiday fling when you were home from college, maybe Christmas break or summer vacation. My goodness, summers in the mid-'80s were so full of crazy lust, romantic or just outright sexual adventures, and amazingly unwholesome fun. I don't know if I was ever the person that someone was longing for in a crazy fog, but I clearly remember twisting the gate for someone's too many times. And once in a moment, it all comes to you. As soon as you get it, you want something new. Well, there it is. You give yourself to someone you have been lusting over, and then they decide they don't want you anymore. It was a temporary arrangement. The protagonist in this story has a pretty clear understanding of the object of their affection, but he's so enamored that he can't do anything but hope and wait for her anyway. And on the flip side, if you're the antagonist in the story, you can totally understand protecting your head and your heart. And this is so appropriate for and illustrative of the origins of the name of my blog, the SFB. I was very fickle. I changed my mind a lot. My college friends and I created a list of kind of what we considered to be truisms. And one of them was, when you finally get what you think you always wanted, you don't want it anymore. Is that true of anyone else? Is that still a universal truth? Okay. We absolutely have to talk about those phenomenally amazing vocals. I like the entire Cars catalog, but I really think their best songs were sung by Benjamin freaking Orr. He is just perfection. The way he can interpret Rick's lyrics was just masterful. There's no one who could possibly have done them justice the way Benjamin did. That symbiotic relationship between Rick and Ben and the natural way that Ben sang was just pure magic. I think I recall Ben saying in an interview that sometimes he didn't even have to think about Rick's lyrics. They just came so naturally. You know, there's been a lot of experts have talked about Ben's tone, his inflection, his phrasing, and all of those things just add up to make this song so powerful. Those little bits of syncopation, of emphasizing the word two rather than one, and one too many times I fell over you, or one too many times I twisted the gate. You know, I don't know if that was Rick's idea to do it that way, or that was just Ben's, you know, little touch, but it just adds so much to the song. Elliot Easton's masterful, absolutely masterful guitar work. You know, when those power chords come in on And Once in the Night, and I kept my renditions, you know, I can hear them. They create this luscious fullness and just a real depth as that sound builds and it enhances those feelings of desire. You know, his music is just the perfect companion to the plaintive emotion in Ben's voice and in those lyrics. And that solo, oh my goodness, he lifts that song up and just weaves seamlessly away from and then back to Ben's vocals. I mean, it's just absolute perfection. The rhythm section. Got to talk about David Robinson, right? He is just so meticulous on that kit. He keeps such a tight beat, and together with Ben's bass line, they just create the perfect sort of like scaffolding or maybe framework that kind of holds it all together. In my mind, I think of it in a weird way as like a little nest. They just create this little nest where all the other parts of the song can live. Keys and synths. You know, this band would not have been what it was without Greg's keyboard and sound effects. His touch and his magic, I think, is what made the Cars into that new wave synth pop category, I guess. He elevated the band, elevated the song into a whole different realm. He always adds just the right zing or a pop or a twang at the right time and just creates a really interesting aura or feeling, I guess, are the words I'm thinking of. So these are just some other random observations that I kind of put down on paper as I've been writing almost every day. I write something about the Cars. You know, watching old footage of the band just really reinforces how spectacular and groundbreaking they were for their time. They just had a vibe that very few other bands then or now possessed. The fact that their image was so carefully crafted or curated and not messy, and freeform was so integral into creating who they were. But I also think it kind of makes it harder to separate the real people from their onstage personas. You know, they appear to be this tight unit, each playing their part for the benefit of the whole. They were each highly talented in their own right, but the Cars really was a package deal. And I think therefore harder to see as individuals, you know, except for Rick, as their fame grew later on into the, you know, the mid and later 80s. But that's a big part of, I think, why they disintegrated. Rick seemed to kind of chafe at that whole group thing, and he kind of wanted to break out and do something different. And we have to talk about Ben, because that's sort of where this whole thing is kind of coming from and going to. I think that's why the breakup seemed to hit him the hardest. I think he thought the band would go on forever, especially since he and Rick had been partners for the better part of basically 20 years. And if you watch videos and concert footage, mostly from the pre-MTV days, even when Rick is singing, your eye is just unavoidably drawn to Ben. His stage presence is just off the charts. I read about someone who knew them and I think photographed them back in the day when they were playing at the Rat in Boston. And this person said that Ben's presence on stage was like a beacon. He just emitted that much wattage. And I think that's such a perfect analogy. You know, he was the focus even when he wasn't singing lead. Your eye just goes to him and just watches him because he had such stage presence. I think that when the band broke up, he kind of didn't know what to do with all that energy. You know, he had been a member in musical partnerships or of bands since he was like 13 years old. And then all of a sudden it was over. And I kind of, you know, where do you go with that? What do you do? Of course, this is all just my guess, just conjecture, just based on things that I've read and watched, you know, just trying to reconcile the Cars Benjamin with the After Cars Benjamin and just trying to sort of put the pieces together. So yeah, it's all I can do. In my opinion, the best Cars song out of all their many great songs. I'd be totally curious to hear what you think is their best song. So that's it for today. Thanks for following.